National Master James Canty III here with Chess.com. And today we have game of the day. With the white pieces, we have Stockfish. And with the black pieces, we have Leela Chess 0. Let's get right into it. Here we go. We have D4 and D5. Classical stuff. Let's see which one we're getting. C4 and E6. Queen's Gambit declined here. Did not take the Gambit. So knight to C3 and knight to F6. After knight F6, knight F3. Still following mainline theory here. You have a lot of moves. And Leela Chess 0 chooses C6, going for a semi-Slav variation, a hybrid, a little bit of aggressive, a little bit of positional, a little bit of everything. And after C6, Bishop G5, following mainline theory here. After D takes C4, we are now entering sort of a Botvinnik variation of the semi-Slav defense here. And of course, the accepted variation where we're going to see B5. You may see A6, you may see C5 eventually, putting a bishop on B7, and casting queenside is usually the plan for black. After D takes C4, so we play E4, still following mainline theory, attacking the pawn here and also threatening E5. B5 defends it, and usually, and sometimes with these Queen's Gambit declines, or sometimes even the acceptance, you'll have problems with this diagonal here when you play B5, but you actually don't have that because there's a knight on F3 blocking that. So after B5, E5, still following exactly what the book says here. E5, attacking the knight. Now, there's things called ESTs, or equal or stronger threats, which means just because I'm attacked does not mean I have to move it. And of course, moving it would be a fatal blunder. No matter where you move this knight, of course, E4 is losing, but knight D5 is losing as well, as your queen's hanging. So you have to attack. So how do you attack? H6. Either back it up or do something with it. And we're looking for an unbalance and an imbalance here as black here to try to keep things in our favor. H6 and bishop to H4, one of the mainline moves, which you'll see G5, which is still following book here. This position has been reached thousands of times, from all levels. After G5, knight takes G5, which is a very strong move here. Of course, again, the best defense being offense. Capture the pawn. So what? And after takes, bishop takes, and now we still keep the pin for the win. Now here, the main move is knight b to d7, and what you're going to see is usually bishop b7, queen c7 a lot, and casting queenside, and it becomes extremely sharp here. After knight b to d7, you can already see that this is extremely sharp already. It's crazy stuff going on, double pawns over here, but then you have the majority, and then maybe you'll go this way. It's a lot going on. But after knight b to d7, there's this g3 move. So to try to oppose this whole diagonal, especially if our bishop's going to sit here on b7. So a very strategical like move, playing g3. And here, you usually do see bishop to b7 or queen c7. You also have queen b6. These are usual moves. But in fact, Leela Chess 0 chose something that usually is not played here. Very interesting move. In fact, here it is right here. Rook h5. Now, it's still equal all around the board here, but Rook h5 is definitely an aggressive move. Just saying, hey, I want to attack this bishop, throw you off a little bit, because I'm sure you were expecting queen c7 or queen b6 or bishop to b7. But I played Rook h5, which is completely different. So after Rook h5, it does hit the bishop. Stockfish chooses to actually capture on f6 with the bishop here. We capture back, of course. We need to keep material count even. They take, and we could play queen f6, but your rook's hanging. You don't block with your face. This is a family channel. So let's go rook f5 and get out of the way and attack this pawn on f6. Then bishop h3. We develop with tempo here. So we're attacking the rook. Rook goes to f6, and we've made 3 rook moves already. Sometimes that could be bad. Sometimes that can come back to bite you. Castle and bishop to b7. And now in this move, it's white to move. What would you actually do? How do you proceed here? You do have moves like knight e4, which I'm assuming you probably play it now. Maybe rook to e1. But what else would you do in this position? White to move. Here it is, actually. White chose, very interesting move. I actually like this from Stockfish, choosing bishop to g2, backing up and saying, hey, this diagonal is dead. I'm hitting a brick wall. Why would I keep my bishop here? First off, loose pieces lose games, and loose being undefended means it could come under attack somehow if the bishop just sits on h3. Sometimes it could just be attacked, and if we're able to get this queen loose and help us somehow, some way on this diagonal, you know, of course, we're playing a little bit of hope chess here, but we want to see if we can get this diagonal or this file and attack this bishop at the same time, because it is loose. It's a loose piece. It's undefended. So bishop g2 was a very strong move. So it's hitting c6. It's also opposing the bishop, or even threatening stuff like knight takes b5. So after bishop g2, queen b6, which is a standard move here, and then we're casting queenside usually. Now you want to keep the threats up. Rook e1 wouldn't be as good. We know casting queenside is coming. So white just plays knight e4. Hit the rook here. Do something with this rook. Let's see where you go. Rook f5 runs into bishop h3, so rook to g6, stepping out of the way. And here's a nice move from white here, actually just stepping out of the way. Queen h5, how many of you would have played this move? This move is actually really strong. I like it a lot. You're also threatening rook to d1 in many cases, and some other tricks up the sleeve. Queen h5, castle queenside, following usual lines, usual theory, usual variations and positions that you see here in this sort of semi-Slav. Castle queenside, and you could play rook d1, but this pawn is hanging no matter what. So whether you play rook d1 or not, this pawn is hanging. So in fact, what would you do? White to move here, not the easiest and a complicated position, but what would you do? Here it is. Knight c5. Strong move. Actually threatening stuff like knight takes e6 in certain cases. Now, bishop g7 stepping out of the way. Let's just put some extra pressure here. Even rook h8, and we feeling real great. Bishop g7, and here it is. White to move. Your move, guys. It's finally time to do something. Feels like our pieces are placed pretty nicely besides the rooks. What do we do? Do we move a rook? Do we move the bishop? Maybe moving the king prophylactically, but that seems like that could be wrong. What would you do in this position? Here it is. I hope you was thinking about forcing moves first, because you always should be. Knight takes e6, and we in the mix. Oh my goodness. If pawn takes, queen takes g6, that's not a move, big fella. So rook takes e6 would be a move, and after rook takes e6, you actually have queen takes f7, attacking the rook and the bishop at the same time. So you actually get that material back, and you're also doing well. I mean, you have 3 passed pawns, not 1, not 2, 3 passed pawns on this side of the board. This is going to be crazy, and we're also going to win our material back as well. So after knight takes e6, powerful move, and rook h8. Of course, Leela Chess was already anticipating this. Rook h8, so you need to be very careful. Where do you put this queen? Queen g4 doesn't make any sense. Queen f3 just drops a piece. What are you doing with your life? Right, maybe queen f3. I guess you may, nope, it doesn't work. Pawn takes, so that doesn't work. Queen f3, we were thinking rook takes, but just pawn takes, and you're fine. So actually, queen f5 is the best move here, keeping the pressure. A discovery over here. If pawn takes, we do have queen takes, and if rook takes, again, queen takes f7. So rook f6, hitting the queen once again, and then we go back. Queen g4, cool, we're good. Hitting g7 now. We have a discovery. Rook to g6, and now, do we take? Do we sack the queen? No, we just block with a check, by the way, gaining a tempo, which is extra time. And then king to b8. The king loves to be on b8. Usually, when you castle queenside, your castle's not usually finished until you move your king to the b file. So you can get off of the trouble that can happen on the c file via x-ray or etc. because of your king being on the c file. So king b8. Now we have to keep the attacks up. One thing you notice about the engine play, and about just play period, especially from strong players, is the attack rate. Like, how much do they attack? How much do they do counterattacks when they are attacked? How much do they implement the best defense being offense, right? You want to pay attention to that. So after king to b8, there's bishop e4 attacking the rook. And queen takes d4. Again, best defense being offense. You take my rook, I take your queen. Very simple. Very simple. So what does white do? What does white do? How do I get out of this pin? Like, I can move my queen. I could move the bishop and try to trade, but that actually drops a piece. But very simple, right? Bring rooks to the file with a smile. Rook a to d1. Absolutely. Appreciate it. Thanks for the free tempo here. And now after f5, which was really strong, by the way, really strong, because if you take with the bishop, we're going to have some trouble. We're actually going to lose the g5 knight. So we had to take with the queen here. Queen takes f5, hitting the rook twice. Hitting the rook twice here, and again, another equal or stronger threat. This move right here is like nuts. Rook f6. That is an insane move. If you take my queen, I take yours. I'm also hitting your rook, and I'm hitting your knight now. So in fact, I'm basically winning if you take on d4. That is not a move. In fact, of course, Stockfish saw this already and played queen to g4 and shut the door. I'm feeling good out here. Queen takes b2 from Leela Chess 0 and says, I'm going to take everything I can get from you. But you need to be aggressive. If someone's taking pawns from you, if you feel like the position's open, you feel like you have coordination, good pieces, good development, you got to keep attacking. Knight e6, beautiful move. Hitting the bishop on g7. Bishop h6, followed by rooks to the 7th. Rook to d7. Put rooks on the 7th rank. You should not allow this, says my system from NM James. You should not allow rooks on the 7th or the 2nd rank, because it's just going to be decisive results, even being down material. So after rook to d7, bishop to c8. You have to get out of here, my guy. You can't stay here long. This rook has to go. And knight to d8. So let's go back here again and look at this move. I mean, First off, I'm in trouble. You would probably think rook e7, and I want you guys to get in the habit of thinking of equal or stronger threats, really strong moves, thinking outside the box and calculating a little bit further. Knight to d8 is a very strong move here. Threatening knight takes c6, defending my rook at the same time, and rook takes actually is a fatal error because you actually pin yourself. Thinking that you were pinned, oh, I'm pinning him, but you're actually pinning yourself. So it doesn't work. Knight d8 and we great. Knight d8, big boy move. And then after queen to e5, well, what we have to do is we have to take something. There's so much going on. This knight feels like it's hanging. Do we double? There's a pawn on c6. Like there's so much stuff going on here. It's insane. So after the queen e5 move, there's actually knight takes c6, attacking the queen with check, of course, and rook takes and bishop takes. And then we have c3. Now, it could take the rook here, but queen takes could be decisive. Maybe, maybe not. Of course, you do have queen c7. I think white's pushing for a little bit more here. As you see, we're up at least a pawn here. So now c3, we're trying to push this past pawn, trying the queen. You thought this was crazy, guys? Wait till the next few moves, okay? Bishop takes b5. So this is a very strong move. Very, very strong. Now, of course, queen takes b5 runs into some very nasty stuff. Well, let's see it. Why? Queen takes b5. Wait a second. Can I just win the queen? Well, you actually can't. Rook b1 and you're done. That's not a move. So you can't do that at all. Your queen is pinned. So like, what do? You don't even have a check. You can't even check him. So it feels like that was a blunder. But in fact, it's actually not. You have to remember, loose pieces lose games. And what does loose mean? Loose means undefended. So let's see what undefended pieces we got. Well, this is defended. This is undefended. The queen's kind of undefended. She defends herself in a way, but definitely this rook's undefended. So here's the move. Queen d4, hitting the rook and mate at the same time. You take, I take, or actually check first, and then I can play rook b1 in between moves, attacking b8. And then captures and take on h6, and we're just winning. c2, when we play rook c1, and we have this whole thing covered. You're not queening if you wanted to. You're never getting a queen there. So with that being said, that didn't happen. Queen takes b5 was not the move. In fact, c2 was played and says, I'm about to queen. You know what? Just forget it. Let's just queen and just keep it moving. Now, after that happens, queen to b4, threatening all kind of checkmates and nastiness here. Queen to b4, what a move. Bishop takes d7. We got to get rid of something. There is no mate here yet. You know, we're trying to. And this is a strong move here. Look at this. Bishop c6. Check. You had this check. You had this check. But he finds this check. Stockfish was very strong for finding this check. Strong period. But anywhere the king goes, you have queen b7 check. And if you go king c8, you're actually getting mated. So king c7 is the best move. And then queen b7 check hitting the king. If you go to d8, mate and we great, start a new game. So king to d6. Now the king is out in the middle of the street. What a game. Take stock of the position and realize white, the black king looks like he's about to get mated somehow. But also black's about to queen and have two queens on the board. So one extra queen. This is nuts. How does white proceed? Well, actually, very strange, not strange, but very interesting move, which is bishop g2, backing all the way up, allowing this to happen to us here. Now, what happens if a queen happens? Well, if queen happens, you're in a lot of trouble, actually, after rook takes, bishop takes c1, and then queen c6 check, king d4, and you actually take on c1 with winning chances here for white, believe it or not, just because the king's in the center of the board. You also could, if you trade queens, if the queens do actually come off, well, you do have these extra pawns here that could easily win the game. These are 3 passed pawns, not 1, not 2, but 3 passed pawns. So this usually 9 times out of 10 will be winning in many situations. So there was no queen there. In fact, after bishop g2, there was king b4 just stepping out of the way, trying to make this thing work because we can block with the queen if we have checks. There is no rook. The rook can't actually help us. The queen's the only thing that can check us. So king b4, queen b7 check, obvious, queen b5, defending. And now in this position, white to move. What can you do here? What would you do? What would you do in this position? I'm sure you're probably going to check, maybe not trading queens because queen is going to happen and then you would lose in that case. So white to move, which check are you going to do? Because you know it's going to be a check here, white to move. Here it is. Instead of queen to e7, a3 check. Very nice. Hey, if you take, I'm going to take. This is called a diversion, right? And then king to a4 runs into bishop c6. King c5 loses the queen. So king c4 is the only move. We would love to get bishop f1 in, but unfortunately we don't have it. And our queen's not hanging, but we don't want to trade. So we check him again. Queen f7 check, king d4, run into the center of the board. King's in the middle of the street, but luckily defending right now. Luckily defending. Now this move, sometimes you need quiet moves, which is very hard. I did just give you a hint there. But sometimes you need quiet moves to help you finish this, or quiet connectors is what they'll call that. Meaning, yeah, it's a smaller move. It's not a loud move like a check. Checks are loud moves, you know, but a quiet move here. So I gave you a hint. What do you think the quiet move is? Why it's a move? Here it is. Stockfish shows Rook E1 says, oh, you about to be done. Rook E1. Well, let's see what happens on the queen, because the queen is like, yo, just queen. How many of you would just queen here, right? So after the queen happens, we have actually a very nice check, which we had already. Queen F6 and king to D3, which you also have two moves. We're going to run through both. If king D3, then we're going to take first and then come back and get the other one. Yeah, you got two queens. I'll take both if you don't mind. So GG. So king c5 is actually the better move here. After rook takes, then bishop takes, you actually take the rook. This is just a super winning endgame here. No checks for black, and we're about to queen one of the three, if not all of the three pawns here we have. So that doesn't work at all. In fact, actually after king to, oh, we already looked at this one. Yeah, bishop f1, and you're done there. So after rook e1, rook to f8, attacking the queen here. Queen is still happening. What a nuts game. This is insane. This is literally insane. After rook f8, queen to g6, hitting c2. Now again, there is an option to queen, but this is not what happened. But let's check and see what happens if queen happened. If queens, which is most likely what most humans would do, we take the queen, bishop takes, and queen d6. Same situation, the same variation in a way where we're just grabbing the rook and going to win this and convert this by means of queening the three pawns we have extra. So now after that, it was actually rook to e8, queen to g6, rook e8. Very strong move, by the way. That was pretty sweet. Just because if you take this rook, now I get the queen with no problems. So there was no capture. In fact, there was a check just to see where the king goes. We're going to just see where you go first. Queen f6 check, king to c4. Bishop f1 is a very strong move, but I mean, it's one of the three moves in this position. You actually have rook a1 and rook to c1. Rook a1 is definitely engine-like. Definitely engine-like. And what do you think Stockfish play right here? Rook a1. Okay. Rook a1. How many of you guys would have played that move? Rook a1, that's nuts there. Rook a1, rook c1 was also another one, which was kind of strange because it is a capture, but rook a1 and bishop f1 is coming. So rook a1 happened, queen to b6 out of the way, and bishop f1 check anyway. There is no queen behind it anymore. King to b3. It looks like this king is getting mated, but weirdly enough, it's just not being mated just yet. Queen f7 and a rook to e6 here. So he's already in trouble. Black is in some trouble here. So after rook e6, what do you do, guys? It's your move. Can you finish this? Is it winning? Is it losing? Is it a draw? What do you do? White to move. Stockfish chose rook e1. Rook e1, put pressure on the pin piece. We learned that from Chess Kids. Rook e1, and then c1 with the queen. Now we finally queen this. Okay, finally queen this. And now, what do you do, man? What are you going to do, guys? You're going to take this queen, right? Rook takes c1. You taking the queen? Is that a yes? You taking this queen? Rook takes c1? Nope. Rook takes e6. Flex real hard. Oh my goodness, what is going on? There's two queens on the board. There is, sorry, three total, but two of them are not mine, okay, says white. Rook takes e6, saying, hey, I don't care what you're going to do. I'm getting one of those queens back. And I also got a rook in the process. What a move here. In fact, white's just crushing now. Rook takes e6. How many of you would have taken with the queen? Raise your hand. I know it's okay. It's okay. When you find a good move, you look for a better one, okay? So rook takes e6. Man, that's a big boy move here. Unbelievable. Look at that. Let's finish this out. Queen b to c5. And then rook b6, double check. So you have to move your king. King to c3. And then queen to f6 check. Kind of a ladder in a way. King to d2. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for the generosity. Queen takes h6 check. Two queens still on the board for black. King to d1. And then queen to e6. Bro, what? Queen e6? Who does this? Oh, Stockfish does. Queen e6. What happens if you take one of the, or not one of them, if you take the rook, either way, it's mate on e2. Oh my goodness. Wow, what a move. Queen e6. That's scary. That'll have you thinking right there. Queen 1 to c2, saying, hey, no mates today, my guy, no mates. And then rook d6 check. So we have to try to tuck the king. And we're feeling kind of safe. Feeling kind of safe. We got two queens. This is a strange position. My king has no shelter, really. I'm like in the middle of the street, but I got two queens, though. I got two queens, king c1 and queen e1 check. Okay, cool. I can't go queen d1. I'm only forced to go here. And, oh, thanks, bro. Give me that queen back. It's time to get that back. Let me get one of those back from you. Rook to d2, queen c3, and that's a wrap. Rook takes, king takes, and this is over. I could just take the queen right now. Queen takes c3 is just straight up winning. But of course, the engine likes to do things with the utmost accuracy. So queen e2 check was actually the move. But queen takes c3 as a human, this is just winning. But queen e2 check, king b3, and then we play h4. King takes a3, and then he trades queens, which is sort of strange. But as you know, the engines make strange moves sometimes, but still stronger than all of us. Queen e3, queen takes, king b4, and this is easy. Let's just run through this, h5, and we live. I mean, this is over. Queen a1, or h8, queening, and then king to c5, queen d4 check. I mean, this is clockwork. Bishop a6, what a move. Just cutting off some squares, like finding the fastest way to mate. Engines will always find that. King c7, e4, king b8, queen b6, one move left, king a8, and you do this one. You do the honors. You do the honors. That's right. Queen b7 mate, and we great. What a game that was. Wow. You knew it was going to be sharp, but wow. We didn't know it was going to be that sharp. Two queens on the board, king in the middle of the street. What's going to happen? That was nuts, but I hope you learned something today from this wild game. I'm National Master James Canty III here with Chess.com, and I'll see you guys on the next video.